For the second time, we are taking a look at Hunker, Pennsylvania, as Slick and Shiny tongue-in-cheek productions takes you through a process of visual experiences that will help you understand Hunker a bit better. This mapping dates from 1867, and down here below Sewickley Mill was Hunker's carding mill. Fred Hunker's carding mill was what became Hunker. You have to be careful with these old maps. New Stanton is now Old Stanton, and New Stanton is down here, where Israel Painter's mill used to be. We're going to move to this area right here. I'll just enlarge it for you to get a better picture. I want to show you some of the things around what became Hunker before it was Hunker. See, this is Sewickley Creek coming down here, and there's no railroad yet. That didn't start running until 1873. Now, around the carding mill, there were other things going on. Israel Painter was a big name. He did a lot of things. He had the mill up at what would become New Stanton. He also was involved in salt works. These salt works up here, they were Israel Painter's operation. Colonel Israel Painter. Over here was a outfit Fulton was running. They made steam engines. They had a foundry. Here was a really big deal. This was an early mine. The early maps called them coal banks, but this is what the mines were called early on. That symbol there means that there was a mine there, and as time went on, there were a lot more mines. These were, you might call them, the eponymous ancestors of Hunker. This was Fred and Anna Hunker, two German immigrants. They came over from Germany, and they started a farm down there and a carding operation, carding mill. And the 1930 census still shows about 8 Hunkers still in the town of Hunker, although Fred and Anna were gone by that time. They passed away, both of them, in 1903. This is Old Stanton. This is New Stanton. Down here is Hunker, and we're going to enlarge that to give you a better picture. This is the town of Hunker itself back here. This is the railroad coming through, and a branch has been built off of that by 1900. See, there was a branch coming the whole way in here, over to this area. This is about 1912. This shows the railroad coming down. This is that area where the railroad was coming into. And interestingly, Keystone Colt owns that land. There's also a place out here owned by Chemical Company of Pittsburgh. And that railroad came out to that area. They were digging stone, crushing it up fine into sand that could be used in the glass making process. Now, I put these colors on for a purpose. I just wanted to point out, this is the town of Hunker itself, about 1912. The green area is property that was still owned by the Hunker family. The heirs of the Hunkers were ownership here. At one time, the Hunkers owned a good bit of property all around here. They had more than 100 acres. The purple is Keystone Colt. My big question is, did they have a mine on this property? And I don't know the answer to that. Maybe someone living in Hunker has heard stories passed on about whether or not there was a mine down here. This is 1939. This is Hunker down here, and I'm going to enlarge that and I worked on that photograph quite a bit to try to make it more visible. This is Hunker in 1939. You can see another important thing around Hunker was the farm business. There were a lot of farmers, and a lot of farms around there. But farms weren't the only thing. You see the mines, a lot of mines around Hunker. When you look at the 1930 census for Hunker, the major category of workers was in the coal business. I could find 28 people living in Hunker who were working in the mines. And there were 11 people actually working in the railroad. And there were other things you wouldn't suspect, like people working in a foundry, a machine shop, people working in a brickyard. Actually, by 1930, transportation was getting more prevalent. They could get on the streetcar or on the train and go to their work on the public transportation. This shows mapping showing the railroad coming through Hunker down into Fayette County. But I just put this on to point out the fact that most of these towns that had mines, the name of the mining company was pointed out. But up for Hunker, you don't see that. That's why I don't think of Hunker as a coal patch. Because when you look at the people that lived there, most of them owned their houses. And in a mining town, they usually didn't. They had the rent from the coal company. And also in the coal patches, a lot of the people were immigrants. And even though there were some immigrants in Hunker, for the most part they weren't. They were mostly people who had come from around here. This shows the town. This is the road going in, Bridge Street. It was actually the old street that used to be the street that went past the old carding mill that Fred Hunker started. This is coming out of town over the old Southwest Branch Railroad out toward the creek where there was a bridge, and that's where the name Bridge came from. This is 1917, when roads were becoming much more important because of the automobile. The red lines are roads. The heavy black lines are the railroads coming down into Hunkers with an S on. The thin black lines were the trolley. Trolleys were becoming important. These lines are trolley lines. Greensburg, in this way, is Pittsburgh, Derry, and we're coming down here, Newstand and Hunker. You could see a person could jump on the trolley and get a ride to work down in Scottdale or up at Youngwood. These are the old style trolleys. They were smaller. Showing the railroad coming down to Hunker, and right south of the town of Hunker it's split. A railroad went over to Yukon and places beyond, and this railroad here went down into Fayette County. This just gives us a picture of the town. It doesn't look to me like a coal town, although a lot of people living there did work in the mines. And that's it. That's it for Hunker, and thank you for coming along on our little trip into the past. And we'll see you again when we do another little trip back in time. So long for now.